Hi folks, welcome to a quick 4coder demo. What I'm going to do today is run through all of the features in 4coder as of 4.06. So it's going to be broken down into two parts. The first part I'm going to do is going to look at all of the basic features that are there that just sort of make 4coder a functioning text editor that, can do whatever you need to do. The things you expect from a text editor are there, basically, right? And the second part, I'm going to talk about the customization system, which is the, in my opinion, the number one feature of 4coder as of 4coder 4.06. There's no part of 4coder that's more valuable than the customization system in 4coder. Although there are plenty of people who like it just for some of its other features. That's why we're taking a look at those basics too. Alright, so first of all, as you can see over here, there's pre-built highlighting in the editor for C++ code. It doesn't really support any other languages yet, and there's not really a way to do that even in the customizations yet. So this is a downside of 4coder, but it's got pre-built C++ highlighting. And you can see it can also edit text files just fine, and you can have them as code files or of other languages. This is a fragment shader that I loaded up, and so on. And what you can do is you can customize which files get loaded as C++ files, which ones get highlighted as C++ files. So if you wanted, you could just say, you know what, parse this as C++, even though it's a little bit off. We'll get most of the things correct, right? And that would probably be fine. But editing text is not all that different from editing code in the system, other than the fact that the highlighting isn't there, and a few other features like auto indent don't work without this parsing turned on. Okay, so there's also all your standard sort of basic text stuff. So if I'm over here and I make some changes and I say, all right, I'm going to need to be able to render this in 2 stages, and so we go, alright, we're going to add a new function that's going to be called begin draw, and we're going to do some work, and then I start thinking about it, and you go, maybe I don't need that, and you keep changing your mind. Well, your standard undo redo is all in there, so you can undo that delete, you can undo each of these little steps, and it also groups words together so that you don't have to undo through characters that are all kind of grouped together in a natural way. So that feature is there. There's also your standard copy-paste, which works throughout the whole program, and it also talks to the operating system, whether you're on Windows or Linux. We support one clipboard right now, so on the Linux platform it doesn't support the other clipboard, the fancy one with the middle mouse wheel clicks and stuff like that, is not supported yet, but normal sort of standard copy-paste clipboard does exist. And a nice feature of 4coder that I actually really enjoy and take advantage of a lot is the paste next feature. So if you hit paste, it pastes whatever you most recently have copied onto your clipboard. And then by default bound to Control-Shift-V, which is just the shifted version of paste, it will replace whatever you just pasted with the copy that happened before that, right? So any copy that happens on 4coder or on the operating system gets recorded in a list, and you can just cycle through all of the pastes that you've got, right? And you can see that it even has this one from before I started streaming of something else that I copied onto the clipboard. And then it'll just cycle back to the beginning, as you were seeing. So that's paste and paste next. That's all good standard stuff, I think. Pretty cool. And then there's your standard search and replace. So I can look for all of my to-dos. The default search is case insensitive, so you can search up and down sort of incrementally, one at a time. There's not currently a built-in way to list all of the occurrences of something, but in the customization layer, there's actually nothing preventing you from making that sort of thing at this point. So it's just a matter of somebody making that. Maybe it'll be me at some point, but maybe someone else will contribute that customization. But yeah, so we have incremental search, case insensitive. You can also customize that to be case sensitive. if that's what you prefer. There's also your sort of various ways of doing replaces. So if everywhere in here I want to switch the name panel to box, I can do Q, which begins a replace, and I say I want to replace the word panel with box. And then everywhere where it sees the underscore there, or the little panel, it'll ask me, do you want to replace this one? And you say yes to replace that one, or no to skip it. So it's like, yeah, I want to replace that. No, I'm leaving that one named panel, but yeah, all the rest of these are going to get replaced, right? And then eventually, I did one too far. I'll have to go back and fix that one. But, you know, I replaced most of these, and it's all good. Oh, there's another one I shouldn't have done. But, you know, once you get through here, and then you go, all right, I don't want to keep going, you hit escape. All right, so it's your standard sort of thing. And that all gets posted to the undo, you know, as you would need it to. There's also replace in range, so you can set your mark in one spot, come down here and go, all right, so all this stuff, the CPP token, I decided that was all verbose, so I'm going to just replace in range, and it's just going to be toke, or we're going to replace CPP token underscore with just toke underscore, right? And then it'll just replace in that range all of the things that match that word. That's also not that's also case sensitive right now. If you want a case insensitive version, again, that's just a matter of going in the customization and doing it yourself. Eventually, a case insensitive version of that will probably be provided by default in the customizations that come with 4coder. Let's see, other things. Auto indent is great, and if you have parsing turned on, as I mentioned, auto indent is up and running. It has sort of indent to parentheses kinds of features, so if you want to do a long list of parenthesized things, it lines them all up in a sort of nice line. It indents by default 4, and I don't think there's any way to customize that right now, but there will be. And it can also either indent by spaces or tabs. That's up to you. You can ask for tab-based indents or space-based indents. Let's see, in addition to that, there's another great feature we have. It's not the most fleshed out feature, and once the code sort of parsing stuff gets stronger, this will get better too, but a word complete, which allows you to hit complete after a portion of a word has been written. And then you can keep on hitting word complete sort of in an Emacs style to just cycle through all of the existing completions for that word in all of the files you have open. So if you open up all the files in your project, then everything will be available for it to parse, and it will you know, have a full word complete list. Obviously, some other options you can have there are, first of all, if opening up all of the files in your project seems crazy, I should let you know that someone's already written a customization that, you know, involves opening up all the files in a directory. And in fact, what they did is they got a project file that says which directory to open, but built into 4coder is a special command called open all code, which if you execute it, actually opens all the code in a directory, right? So now if I look through my list of open files, you'll see that all of these are open now, right? So that's brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is this is the file listing UI here. This lists all of the currently open buffers that I can switch to, and you can see it tells me which ones have edits in them. It also lists these sort of star buffers here, but it does a little bit of sorting to try to put the ones you have open and the star buffers closer to the bottom and put the more useful buffers at the top. The ones you haven't touched recently, so that you're more likely to switch to them, right? And of course you can either arrow navigate your list, you can mouse navigate it and click, or you can just type these things in to narrow down the list, right? And that is narrowed down by a substring, so you can do things like test9 to skip to that one, and whatever you need to do. Similarly, there's a file system explorer, and when you open this, it is looking through your file system. So now we see the directory we're in, and it shows me all the files in this that I have loaded, and you can see anything with a CPP on it got loaded just now because I hit open all code, and that command opened all the CPP files in the the current directory. That's called the hot directory in 4coder, the one that's most recently, you know, latched onto if we need a new directory. It left all the text files unopened because as it was looping through, the files, it didn't see the .cpp extension, and all the code that controls that entire loop, that is all written in the customization layer. So anything similar to that, if you want to open exactly all the H files, or you want to open, all the TXT files, you can do whatever combination you want, because that's in the customization layer. So if you have the customization code up, you can just write in the exact behavior you want. This file browser, if I take a look at it, it works. It can go around the system, and you can basically look at anything you want to look at. So that's that's useful. It also the system is smart enough to not get confused by subst and links and stuff like that. So what that means is all those files I have open, if I go through here to the data folder, we should see, and I haven't actually tested this in a while, so we'll find out, but we should see, yeah, it knows, even though we're using a very different name, instead of w:/, it's c:/work / right, which I have subs to the W directory. And on Linux, this is also true. If you have sort of symbolic links between directories and things, it doesn't get confused there, and it knows which file it's actually looking at, which is a useful feature to have. So let's see. There's a few fancy features in 4coder. These probably go beyond the basics that you would sort of assume that your text editor needs to have, but some people, I think, like 4coder just for this stuff. So one thing is when you come in here to pick themes, there's some pre-built themes for you. You can set your own theme in this theme setter. There's no way to export and save themes yet. It's a sort of underdeveloped feature for the most part. One thing you can do though, I guess set font is not working right now, so I'll skip that part of the demo, but I'll also note that we need to fix that. But there is support for proportional fonts. So if I was able to, let's see, how can I pull that up real quick? If I come in here to my settings file, I can switch this over to Liberation Sans, I believe. Well, I don't really remember the name it needs to be. Let me just take a quick look in the custom.h, because well, it's not there. It's in the default bindings, maybe. Yeah. So the font I want is, yeah, Liberation Sans. So that looks good. So I've just changed my 4coder settings file, which is a feature that's also implemented in the 4coder customization layer. And so you can set it up to do whatever you want. My customization should be set up right now, I believe, so that it reads out of that that settings file to determine what theme and font to load on start. So there we go. Now we're getting the same theme, but we're now loading a proportional version of, or a proportional font called Liberation Sans. Now it's not necessarily the prettiest font for code, and in general proportional fonts aren't usually made for code because everyone codes in monospace fonts. But if you do want to do proportional font coding, because there are some people out there who are into it, and I was into it for a while, I've switched back to mono for a little while for complex reasons, but it is supported. So if that's something you want to have available, it's available. Another thing people usually like, and let me switch real quick now back to the font that I prefer right now, since I think the hack font just looks better. So let me reboot this again. There we go. Another thing people tend to like is the smooth scrolling, which is pretty much exists everywhere in the system. Anything that has a scroll bar here, and really they don't even need to have scroll bars, right? That's totally optional, but and available in the customization as something you can change. But if you if you like the smooth scrolling, that's there, and also in the customization you can set the scroll rule. So if it's too fast, or if you want it to be smoother, or if you just want it to automatically skip to its location and not have smoothness at all, so it's just instantaneous jumping, that can all just be accomplished in the customization code by setting the scroll rule. So to demonstrate that in action, you can see here I'm scrolling through the code and it sort of smoothly goes to its location. So you kind of can get a sense of the direction in which code is moving as you're moving around it, right? Another great thing that 4coder has is a little bit of flair similar to the smooth scrolling, which has the effect of, if you've ever had the experience of taking a chunk of code like maybe this big or so, maybe bigger, maybe you wanted like all of this, it's like just a bunch of code. It's maybe one function that's this long, but maybe it's just a big chunk of code that you're going to be copying and pasting and then changing a lot of it, but you need a big copy. When you paste in something like Emacs, for instance, you don't have the smooth scrolling, so another thing that can go wrong is that instantaneously the new text shows up and you don't actually see any change on your screen. So you don't actually know for sure that the paste worked, and it's not until you scroll up and realize that there are now two copies where there used to be one that it worked, right? But the screen didn't change. So 4coder does a few things there. When you paste, the smooth scrolling will let you know that something has happened, but it also paste fades the text you just pasted. So if you saw that, I don't know if you did because it's pretty quick. Let me grab a copy of this line and just paste it a few times so we can see it happening over and over again, right? That was all, and I think the parentheses there was causing us to get more and more indented at each step. But if I keep pasting this, you should see that each one is fading away from yellow, right? And the undo actually also has this for the same reason, right? Is that if you redo some text and some text shows up, it redo fades that text. So that's all just there to sort of give you a little bit more visual feedback about what has just happened that other text editors, I've never seen another text editor provide that. So that's some of the fancy features. One other nice thing about 4coder is that it has generic support for any kind of child process stuff you want, which is also entirely exposed in the customization. So, for instance, I have in my basic customization a thing which looks for a build.bat and runs it, because that's how I set up all of my build processes. So if I'm in this folder and there's a build.bat, it'll look in the hot folder and go, I found a build.bat, and run it. So here we can see 4coder building, right? And that is the output that I would have seen, except for this line here was added by 4coder to let me know whether we succeeded or not. But that output there would have been outputted if I run the same exact batch file on the command line. That's just the output from the batch. And now there's this new buffer here called compilation that stores that result. And if you want, you can do general versions of this. So there's a command that I have by default bound to Alt-Z that allows you to say, all right, I want to not compile, but I want to run the packaging script. So I'm going to run package, and I want to put it into the pack buffer. Right now, that's going to run the 4coder packaging script, which is a little bit bigger and more heavyweight. But now it can also run in 4coder, and I don't have to rename it to build or anything crazy like that. You can just on the fly run whichever one you want. And if you want to if there are lots of build targets that you're going to have, and you're going to want to switch between them or be able to call any one of them on the fly at any time, that's all possible from the customization layer, because all you have to do is specify some memory to store which your build targets are going to be, and then when you hit a key, that key is associated to a build target or however you want to set it up, and you just then call the thing that launches a general or that launches a child process, right? So that's a lot of the sort of the non-customization oriented. I've mentioned the customizations all the way through, but this is all the features that are in there by default, right? But there's actually a lot more to 4coder once you open up the customizations, just because of the fact that it's customized entirely in DLL, separately compiled DLL code written in C++, right? So some people that choice seems a little odd, but I think that because 4coder is supposed to be for people who are already programming C++, they're already used to compiling lots of things all the time, and it's the language they're best in, so it's easiest for them to write their customizations there. So whether you're on Windows or Linux, you can compile customizations as a sort of external module, and you just drop your external module in next to 4coder, and it will pick it up and start reading it. Or you can have multiple builds and tell 4coder which one to launch with whenever you run it. And some of the features in there, if I pull up the customization, which we already saw a little bit of this, default bindings, yes, that's the one we want. some of the things we've got in the customization layer are, you know, the binding is very easy. You just have a list of keys, which modifiers are on those keys, and the commands that those do. So if you look at the default bindings and you go, oh, I see that this command here was bound to this key, I just want to change how some of these keys are laid out or something, that's just a matter of coming in here, changing them around so that you have the different commands at the different locations you want. Now, as you're looking through here, some of these start with command ID, CMD ID. Those are provided by the 4coder internal code. Then there's other ones that don't have that prefix, and those are things that are implemented in the custom layer. So for instance, that means save as is implemented in the custom layer. That also means build, search, execute arbitrary command, all of these things, all those build things I showed you are actually, it's written in the customization side, which is exposed to the user so that they can change it, is written in the behavior. So whether it's searching for build.bat or whether it's executing a specific thing that you pre-decided what it should be, or it's executing whatever thing you type into that bar at the top. And that's another really great feature, is the extent to which you can write your own commands just in general, right? So not only are you able to mix these things around, but you can write your own commands with a lot of power. So there's a number of things that make the API powerful. For one thing, you have complete access to the buffer. So if I come up here at the top, one of my favorite features actually is the fact that I can just make these keys that automatically write out things that I use a lot. These are just sort of here for demoing purposes, but these three here are things I write all the time. This to initialize a struct to 0, and these to leave to-dos and notes in my comments around my code. And since I was typing out that string, I'm not sure how many characters that is. It's somewhere above 10, right? It's something like 15 characters or so. It's not a whole lot to type, but I can turn that into one keystroke because now I just have my own custom command that is called write_ALN_note, and I have a helper function called write_string, which all I have to do then is tell it what string to write. And then what you can do is go read that helper string and see what is that, how does this helper function actually work. And there's other more complicated ones that do other great stuff. So if we go to the default include, we can see some examples of other great features. So for instance, here we have a thing which writes out a pair of brackets and maybe puts a semicolon or a break after it depending on exactly what you're doing, which I have bound to control brace and control shift brace and stuff like this, so that I can automatically create a pair of braces anytime I want. I can just go if x, boom, right? So one keystroke, I've written the open brace, the close brace, and put my cursor where I wanted it. And that all goes through this long braces function here, right? And this is why it's so helpful to so many people that 4coder is customized in C, is that you can just do, or in C++, is that you can just do the basic abstractions that you are used to writing stuff in. So if you want to pull something out into a function and just have this helper here, you don't have to learn a different dialect of a weird scripting language that you're not familiar with. It's just in the language you're always working in, right? So what this function here does is it grabs the active view in the buffer so that it gets access to the thing it's going to modify, and then it does the text replacement, and that text replacement is really just inserting the text you're asking for, and then it sets the cursor inside there, right? And that is all sort of pulled out right here in a way that allows you to reuse it in these three places. And if you wanted to do even more, sort of like, what I want is somehow different. I want square brackets, or I want one where the brackets have, I don't know, like the name of something after the end because it's a struct or something that I want an instance of, or I'm type defing structs like C style, whatever. There's all kinds of options you can do there. There's also even more fancy ones, like if you want to just block out a whole chunk of code at once. Again, implemented in the custom layer. Other people have written things like a snippet system. They've added jump to error to the output from Microsoft Visual Studio and to LLVM. There's a couple of MSVC parsers actually that I've seen. There's also sort of because the sort of the find replace, that dialogue thing that pops down, that's actually all in the customization, because the whole command system is set up so that you can do these sort of asynchronous ask the user for more input and then wait until we get that input and then continue the command kind of structure. People, like I said, made a snippet system. There's also all of the stuff you do with building calling batch files, or using system commands of any kind you want to launch child processes. That's all also able to use that sort of interaction system. And there's also things like kill rect exist, and things like this. So there's just a tremendous amount of power that you can leverage because of the fact that it's all 100% up to you what you write, and it's in the language that that the whole program is in, and it all sort of works together very nicely. So that's everything in 4coder as of 406. So thank you everybody for watching, and see you around.